Hello and welcome to episode 2 of After the Ending, the movie podcast where we take your favorite films and discuss what happened to all those characters after the movie ends. I'm Mike Spring, and with me is Phil Edwards. Hello, Phil. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm fine. Are you good?
I can't complain. Thanks for asking.
Excellent.
All right, so tonight we are going to talk about two movies that are fairly different, I think. One is Super 8, and the other one is... Now, this is tricky, right, Phil? We agreed.
Yeah.
For you, it's known as Leon.
Yeah, always been Leon.
Okay, and over here, it's mostly known as The Professional.
Oh, just by the way, just in case people don't know, I'm based over in England,
right
near Liverpool.
There you go. I'm in upstate New York in the U.S., so we're a pretty international podcast.
Exactly.
But occasionally that's going to lead to, obviously, some things like this. So for Phil, the film has been known as Leon. Over here, it's known as The Professional. And mostly now I see that Sony has been marketing it as Leon the Professional to sort of, combine it into one easy-to-capture name, I guess. So
yeah, my Blu-ray just says Leon at the minute, but
there you go.
I got that a couple of years ago.
Right. Well, they did just release it on Blu-ray here in the U.S., like a special edition, anniversary edition, whatever you want to call it. And it was, for the first time that I know of in the U.S., it was called Leon the Professional instead of just The Professional. So that's what we're going to talk about, Super 8 and The Professional, Leon the Professional, excuse me. And a couple of show notes I wanted to mention before we get started. Two things. First of all, I just thought it'd be interesting to tell people that we don't compare notes before we record the episode.
That's very true.
We like to kind of surprise each other a little bit. So we each come up with our endings separately, and then we talk about them. So that's why sometimes we may have the exact same endings, and sometimes we'll have wildly different endings. So
yeah, it's going to be a mystery until we announce them.
That's right, and I'm sure eventually it'll lead to a knockdown, drag out, debate. But so far so good.
Yeah, it's all good so far.
And the second thing I wanted to mention was last week, not just once but twice, I called the Paranormal Activity movies, I called them the Paranormal Activities movies. I think my brain was confused between saying, Paranormal Activities and Paranormal Activity movies. And I said it twice, and I know that if I was listening to a film podcast and one of the hosts got the name of a movie franchise wrong, it would probably perturb me. So I wanted to let people know.
It's such a fine line.
It is, but I do know the correct name of those movies, so please don't hold that against me.
I'm sure people will pick up on many things we get slightly wrong.
Probably. Probably. That's all right. That's part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the joys of listening to podcasts. To rip
exactly.
them apart.
Exactly. All right, so what are we doing first tonight, Phil?
Let's go with Leon the Professional.
All right, so I think I'm going to take a point on that, if I'm not mistaken.
All
right, so Leon the Professional is one of the early films by Luc Besson, who went on to do The Transporter and most notably The Fifth Element. As well as a bunch of other movies, some good, some not so good. It stars Jean Reno and a young Natalie Portman in her very first film role. So it's a pretty well-loved movie, I think. Critics and fans alike have a lot of affection for it. How about you, Phil? Are you a fan?
It's a great movie. I've always loved it since the first time I saw it many years ago.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, great performances and a great thriller.
Yeah, and some really, especially the last, half hour or so, terrific action sequences, a well-put-together film all around.
Yeah, and always good to see Gary Oldman just going crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. I should have mentioned that. Gary Oldman,
Bring me everyone!
There you go. Gary Oldman chewing the scenery in fine form. But he's great also. So the story is Leon is a French hitman. He's living in New York City. He works for this mafia guy named Tony who owns a restaurant. In his apartment building, there's this 12-year-old girl lives next door to him named Matilda. That's Natalie Portman's character. And he sort of takes a shine to her, but he can see that she's not being treated too well at home, obviously being maybe a little abused or just neglected, treating poorly by her family. It turns out that her family is the patriarch, if you will, is a drug dealer, and the rest of the family are a bunch of not the most upstanding citizens in the world.
No, they're all a bit dodgy, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. And this dirty DEA agent, Stansfield, who's played by Gary Oldman, comes to get some money. He ends up killing the entire family, including Matilda's little brother. But Matilda isn't home at the time. She comes home in the aftermath of it and kind of keeps walking, gets Leon to let her into the apartment, and he basically saves her. And the bad guys don't know that she's really there. So then she decides that she wants to become a cleaner, which is what he calls his profession. Even though he's an assassin, he calls it being a cleaner. She wants him to train her, and he sort of is reluctant, but he sort of also starts, he has her cleaning his weapons and cleaning the apartment, but eventually does start to teach her about how things work, teach her about the weapons, even takes her out on an assassin training run. And so at a certain point, she gets a little cocky and takes a couple guns and goes to try and kill Stansfield for murdering her family, or mostly her little brother. She didn't really seem to care too much about the rest of them. Stansfield captures her instead. Leon comes to rescue her. Stansfield goes to question Tony about who he is, finds out who he is, brings pretty much the entire New York Police Department and DEA to Leon's apartment. Big, huge action sequences. Leon kills a whole bunch of cops. He gets Matilda out of the apartment and sends her away, kind of. And he basically almost makes it out, but at the last minute, Stansfield shoots him. And it seems like he has the last laugh, but Jean Reno, or Leon, gets him close up and then reveals he's just pulled the pin on a string of grenades, and they both blow up, and Matilda's on her own. And at the very end of the movie, Matilda kind of returns to this sort of girls' school that she had been attending but had been absent from because of her family situation. But she takes this plant that Leon had sort of taken with him everywhere and sort of cared for. It was kind of his little pet almost. She takes this plant and plants it in the field by the school, sort of symbolic of her putting down roots, I think, something that she didn't really have before, and that's the end of the movie. How'd I do, Phil? Does that seem about right?
That seems to be, I've covered it very well. I think we've got everything.
All right. I try to keep it short. Seems like I went on a long time, but that's the movie in a very large nutshell.
Yeah. Oh, and Leon also always drinks milk. That has no bearing on the case, but he does quite a bit. So.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, on the new Blu-ray that came out, there's a milk carton. That's like the sole kind of graphic image on the disc itself.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, so, they paid attention.
Part of the film.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a character beat, I think.
Yeah.
So, Phil, tell me, what did you think happens in the day after the film ends?
Okay, day after. First of all, I was worried about the plant, because I'm not sure about you, but I don't think that plant could survive in that kind of soil. Although we don't know what soil it is, so let's get rid of the plant.
Okay.
The plant's dead. So the day after, Matilda will be back at school, trying to deal with her grief of losing her friend and mentor. The police would be looking into Leon, because he killed so many of them in the shootout that went on. They may be able to link him to some of the various murders he's done in the past for the mob, but it's doubtful. He always seemed to keep everything clean. Didn't leave any clues, was always very thorough in what he did. It was only when he got to know Matilda that things changed. So it's doubtful the police would be able to link anything back to him. But Matilda, she'd be back in school, dealing with the grief, just trying to get on for the moment, trying to see what's what. And maybe Tony will get in touch because they already said, didn't he, that he was going to put money away for Matilda.
He did, but I don't believe him.
No, he's a mob boss. What are you going to do?
Yeah, he seems slimy. He said he'd give her an allowance, but I think, same thing when Leon tried to come and get the money, he sort of blew him off for that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know about that. But anyway.
Yeah, well, that's me on that one. It's not the most exciting, but...
You know what? I don't think the day after ever is the most exciting part, but that's okay.
Matilda's just going to want to distance herself from the events so she doesn't get captured or questioned.
So what I had is I agree that I think she tries to settle in at school. And I think kind of the next day what happens is that one of the girls starts to make fun of her because she's a bit of an outsider. I think they've sort of established that. And so Matilda gets into a fight with her and breaks the girl's nose because she knows a little something now. She knows she's tough.
Yeah.
So she gets sent to the office, but given her circumstances and the fact that she just came back, she gets off with a warning. But it sort of sets the tone. The other girls know not to mess with her.
Yeah, she's a tough one.
Yeah. All right. How about the immediate aftermath? What do you see there?
The immediate aftermath, I think, because she got on so well with Leon, she wants to respect his wishes. So I think she's just going to stick at school, work hard, keep herself to herself. But there'll be the occasional run-ins with the other pupils. I think she's just going to get her head down and work hard. But she'll also be trying to keep herself fit and healthy because Leon put the element of discipline into her. And depending upon which way she's going to go, because I see she's got two options. She can either just carry on with the schoolwork, work hard, get a 9-to-5 job, and just have a normal life, or she could end up
being a serial killer.
Yeah, no, not this time. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought for sure
she'd get paid for it though if she did.
Right, because she's kind of a natural at being what she's been through. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but or the other way she could go, she could fall down the rabbit hole. Get involved in the wrong kind of people, get involved in drugs, things like that. But again, I think Leon's discipline would keep her away from that side of crime, but I could see her getting involved in learning how to fight, dealing with weapons. That's going to be, I think, the way she could go.
Yeah, I think I actually had a very similar sort of outcome there. I think that over the next few months, she kind of tries to settle in. I agree. She wants to kind of honor Leon's wishes, so she doesn't get into more fights. I think she starts hanging out with the other girls and making friends and kind of adjusting to being a normal teenager. But she's also a smart kid, so I think what happens is she sort of starts to she kind of befriends like the school's gym teacher and like does like after school workouts, like learns some self-defense stuff, so she's a normal teenager, but she's smart enough to know that there's a lot of bad people in the world, so she wants to be able to take care of herself. So
exactly,
from a young age, I think throughout school she's going to kind of be developing her skills and honing her skills and making sure that she's ready for whatever comes at her.
Yeah.
All right, so how about your long term? Since you've already revealed she's not going to become a serial killer, go ahead and tell us what you got.
Well, again, it depends upon the path she's gone through before, but so I could see her either, if she was sticking with Leon's wishes, she'd live a normal life. She'd invest. If she did get money off Tony, she'd make money. I could see her getting into acting because she was basically acting the whole time when she was with Leon. You've got to make sure you don't give anything away. Mm-hmm. You've got to change your emotions when need be. So I could see either getting into acting or becoming a psychologist and helping other kids who've gone through traumatic experiences in the past.
Yeah, I like that.
But I could see her, whatever happens, having quite a solitary life. She'd always be trying to find somebody to replace Leon.
Right.
And I think that would be pretty hard.
Sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I can see that.
You could also say she'd become a kick-ass assassin, but I really don't see that. I think that's the least likely scenario.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I think if we're grounding it in the real world, the chances of her becoming an assassin, I think, I know they're out there. I know there are assassins in the world, but they're not. It's not exactly like a commonplace.
I think Leon, it's sort of, he comes across as a bit of an anomaly as a person.
Right.
He's obviously something's happened to him in the past, which has put him on that path as well.
Right. I agree.
Of course, he also, Jean Reno, he played, he was in Luc Besson's Nikita, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
As a cleaner there.
I believe so, yeah.
And when I first saw Leon after seeing that, I always said, well, is it the same guy? But it was, the personalities were too different. The cleaner in Nikita was too chatty and wasn't a Leon kind of guy.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I think that's just something filmmakers, sometimes they have these sort of gray areas where it's like, is it the same character? Is it not? Well, we're not going to tell you, and but there's some sort of, it's like a blood relative almost.
Yeah, it's good to build these bridges, isn't it, between different movies?
I think so. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so for my long term, so now interestingly, I don't usually do this, but I kind of had this like second ending to the movie in my head as I was thinking about this. So I only followed her up until about college age, and then I have sort of like a fade to black moment. So the way I see it,
go on then, yeah.
All right. So she, as she becomes a teenager, she continues to settle into her normal life. She does well in school. She takes care of herself. I originally thought she cultivates Leon's plant, but I think there's no way that plant's going to survive a New York winter. So,
that's true. Yeah.
But maybe she gets like a surrogate plant that she keeps in her apartment.
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be a thing running through her life, I reckon. Yeah, she'd always have this. Something she's going to be looking after.
Right, exactly. So I think she has like kind of a little plant. After she graduates from high school, I think she goes to visit Tony because I think she sort of cut off all ties with him, and she wants her money. And he doesn't recognize her, doesn't have any idea who she is until she mentions Leon, and then he kind of like tries to blow her off again and is like, yeah, your money, this and that. And then she puts the beat down on him, using all the skills that she's been practicing since she was a kid, until finally he gives her money. And that's where the sort of movie ending comes in. Like, I just have this vision of her like walking out into like the New York City streets, like at night with all the lights, and she's got like this bag of money on her shoulder, and she sort of walks off into the streets and, into her life, and,
nice.
Fade to black. So there you go.
That's a nice ending. Yeah, it's a good ending for her.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for happy endings, I have to admit. So I don't know if that's always where I'm going to go. I don't think it will be, but I do have a soft spot for them. So, but in this case, it was very cinematic in my brain. So
that's good. Interestingly enough, I was reading though, and we almost did have a sequel to Leon. It was 2011's Colombiana directed by Olivia Oliver Megaton.
Yes, who's kind of a protege of Luc Besson's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this Colombiana starred Zoe Saldana from Star Trek. And I was reading, apparently that was going to be a sequel to Leon, that Luc Besson had in mind for years.
Right.
But time passed, and Besson ended up changing the script.
Yeah, but again, that's sort of what I would say is like a blood relative of it. You know, it's certainly a spiritual successor, if you will.
Definitely.
Okay, so Phil, anything else you want to say about Leon the Professional before we move on?
Only it's a great film, and if you've not seen it, well, we've already explained what happens. But if you've not seen it, it's well worth watching. And if you've already seen it, watch it again, because it's a great film.
Agreed. You know, I feel like maybe now it's a little late to say this, but spoiler alert, for our entire show. I mean, this could maybe be like our blanket spoiler alert for the rest of the series, because, we're going to pretty much spoil every movie we talk about. I mean, it's sort of inherent in a show that's about the endings of movies, I think. So hopefully people figure that out.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up Leon the Professional. Let's talk about Super 8. Phil, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about Super 8.
Okay, Super 8 from 2011. It was directed by J.J. Abrams and produced by Steven Spielberg, who collaborated on the story. And basically, it's J.J.'s tribute to the films of Spielberg in the way it's shot and filmed. Okay, it's 1979. We follow a 14-year-old kid called Joe, whose mum's just been killed in an accident in the steel mill. His dad blamed her co-worker, Lewis, as she covered his shift because he had a hangover. A few months later, Joe's helping his friend Charles make a low-budget zombie movie with some friends, which looked like great fun, to be honest. They get Lewis's daughter, Alice, involved. She's played by Elle Fanning. She joins them as the lead actress. And so they go off to do some filming at the train depot. Charles says, the train's coming. We've got to get this on film. It'll be amazing. So they start filming. Kids are shouting. Cameras rolling. And then Joe sees a white truck come screaming out from nowhere, drive along the train tracks and hit the train, causing it to derail. There's a massive accident. The camera falls over, but it's still recording. Once everything's stopped, all the dust has settled, they run up to the truck and find it's their old biology teacher, Dr. Woodward. And he warns the kids not to tell anyone or else their parents will be killed. But then the military turn up, or the Air Force, and eventually they, through some secret mission they've got going on, set fire to the woods and brush outside of town and start to evacuate the town, saying that everybody's in danger, and moves them all to an air base. And suddenly Alice is whisked away by this weird creature thing we've only seen in passing. What it's all been about is a spacecraft crashed and the Air Force had the alien. The alien grabbed Woodward, had a psychic connection, because that always happens in films.
Right.
And Woodward's been trying to help it. The kids realise that the alien is just trying to get away, even though he has been grabbing people from the town and causing all this problem. And the real enemy is really the Air Force. They track the alien down under the town's water tower, where they find all the bodies that have been abducted and some weird machinery the alien's been building. They rescue Alice. Alien grabs Joe. They have a moment, and Joe's telling the alien, saying, it's okay, we're not all bad. And then the alien lets them all go and uses all his magic alien tech and makes a big spaceship on the water tower and blasts off into space. And the end. And there we have it. So what happens the day after?
All right, so I think in the day after, the government, sort of, they've destroyed half the town chasing this alien. They sort of kind of come in and try to cover things up. They sort of put the clamp down. The media tries to come in and see what happens, but the government quarantines the town. They make up an excuse about a gas leak or some sort of infectious disease or something like that. So because the government can't let the people who saw the alien talk about it, so they sort of kind of hold them prisoner, but at the same time, they're not truly evil, so they don't want to just kill them all off. So they sort of sequester everyone so they can try and contain the situation. So that's just my day after.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much the same as well. And the fact it's 1979, so there's no internet, it's going to be quite easy to lock everything down.
Right. I hadn't thought about that. Good point.
Because they've already mentioned there's bushfires going off around. So they've already got the backstory set up. The townspeople are already evacuated. The only people who really saw it, apart from the soldiers, are the main characters. So the Air Force, they're going to move in to cover everything up. The worst case scenario, which is, as you said, it's going to be doubtful, is they kill everybody in town.
Right.
To make sure nothing gets out. But then you've got all these soldiers, and some of them are going to blood things off anyway. If anybody else from the town did see it, because they probably didn't get everybody out of town, it's going to be blowing people's minds seeing this alien spacecraft assemble itself and then take off. So I think if there were people still in town, all the bars and clubs are going to be chocked full of people getting drunk after seeing this amazing fire in the sky.
Yep.
I think he'd be the one, Joe's father, the sheriff, he's going to be the one trying to get get the word out.
Right. I can see that.
Okay, so what about the immediate aftermath?
All right, so I think that basically the government kind of basically tells everyone, not in so many words, but tells everyone, hey, if you don't talk, we'll leave you alone. But if you talk, there's going to be problems, and we'll deal with you, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think Jack and Lewis and the kids all sort of eventually agree that they should just go along with the government. Because even though I do agree, I think Jack would be sort of the kind of guy to stand up for what's right, but he's got a kid to take care of.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's going to win out. I think he's going to know that you can't take on the government and win in a situation like this. And then so I think that the few people in town who don't agree to go along are kind of quote relocated. But most everyone does. Like you said, not everyone knows what happened anyway, so most people just sort of agree to go along with the government.
No, I think lots of the townspeople they wouldn't believe it anyway. It's humanity has a great way of denying these amazing things, and so I think it'd be what we didn't see, can't harm us, so let's just get on with life.
I think so. I think the government makes up whatever story it is about a methane leak or, whatever, and forest fires, and most of the townspeople are going to go along with that. The media comes to town, but nobody talks, and so eventually after, a week or so, it becomes kind of a non-story, and, life sort of starts to settle back down and return to normal. Yeah,
that's pretty much the same with me. The main thing would be the town's got to be rebuilt. There was all the wire that the alien took from the power lines, like that.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of work to make it habitable again. Lots of property damage when all the Air Force's weapons misfired.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of thing. So it's going to be lots of rebuilding in the town. And so I think as for the main characters in the film, all the film crew, Joe and Alice and Charles and the rest, I think everything they've gone through is this amazing experience. But they can't tell anyone because who's going to believe them?
Right.
So I think it'll bring them all closer together as friends. I mean, one or two may drift away, but I think they're all going to be this core group of friends. And as we saw, they like making films. I wouldn't be surprised if Charles decided to make a film about some kind of alien invasion.
Right.
So I think that's how they'd cope with it.
Right. I like that.
They'd do some cheesy alien invasion. They'd start working on that. They get the zombie film done. And the next one will just be this alien thing, and it's how they can cope and deal with what happened to them.
Yeah, sort of a way to tell the story without telling the story, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I like that.
But what about the long term then, Mike? What do you reckon is going to happen in the long term?
All right, so so you know how you have a thing for serial killers, right? I have a thing for going meta, apparently. So here's what I came up with.
It's always good going meta. What about a meta serial killer?
A meta serial killer? Yeah, I'm sure I'll get to that. Don't worry. That's coming in a future episode.
Yeah, okay.
I do have some strong concerns about Will Smith's character Hitch, that love doctor.
Oh, yeah.
I think he could go dark. But anyway, so...
that came from nowhere. That's good.
I like to keep things a little bit in left field from time to time.
Yeah.
So I think that Jack and Alice, they start dating. I think they fall in love. And wait, not Jack. That would be super creepy.
Oh God, yeah, no, yeah. Joe and Alice.
Real inappropriate. And I don't go that dark with my movies. Okay, so let me clarify. I think that Joe and Alice start dating, and they become high school sweethearts, and they stay together. And eventually they fall in love, and they get married in 1987, which is 8 years after the events of Super 8.
Oh, this is going somewhere.
Yes. So 2 years later, they give birth to their daughter, Beth. She grows up having a normal life. They never mention the events of Super 8 to her because, again, who would believe them? She graduates high school in 2007. She moves to New York City to go to college.
I'm getting excited.
All right. And then in 2008, disaster strikes. A giant monster attacks New York City.
No!
Deheads the Statue of Liberty, destroys most of Manhattan, and then the military attack, the Hammer Down Protocol comes down, blows up the monster, most of the island, taking Beth and her new boyfriend Rob with her. Any of that sound familiar at all?
It does.
Yeah.
If only I could remember what it was called.
It was called Cloverfield.
Cloverfield.
Yes. Now, in my defense, when I came up with this, I did not know that Super 8 was perhaps going to be considered as a prequel of sorts to Cloverfield. Had no idea. I
only found that out when I was just doing a bit of reading up on the film.
I found that out too when I was reading up on the film after I came up with the idea. So a little bit, I looked at that and I was like, I thought I was being super clever. But so I think that the alien went back to its home planet and was super pissed off because even though these kids helped him escape, he'd been held captive for what, like 20 years or so at this point?
Oh, yeah, and he'd been tortured and prodded and probed.
Right, so I think that he's he's pissed, and they set in motion, they're going to attack Earth and everything. And so I think that this creature in New York City is in Cloverfield is sort of either like the first wave of the attack or just the first attack the first part of the attack that we see, in a global attack.
Or maybe the alien that we see in Super 8 is one of the aliens from Pacific Rim, and the Cloverfield creature is one of the first kaiju.
Right.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. It's like a triple meta.
Yeah, this one just hit me now.
There you go.
Oh, I should have thought of that earlier. Yeah.
So it splits into 3 different movies. See, these are all documentaries about real alien attacks.
That's what it is.
There you go. So that's my long term. How about you?
Okay, well, I reckon Charles would stick to directing.
Mm-hmm.
The main story connecting the kids was the zombie movie they were making. So I can see him going to directing movies, but he's always going to be stuck making B movies and things like that, which is perfectly fine and everything. But he's going to be the kind of guy who wants to make the brilliant film that will change the world.
Right.
But I think he'd never quite make that. Then we've got, is it Carrie or Corey? He was the guy, the cameraman who the little kid who liked blowing things up.
Right.
He's going to end up going to prison for arson or something, because he liked blowing things up too much.
Yeah, he's probably a pyro, right? Just setting fires around town.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, but then we have Joe and Alice. Like you, I had them becoming a couple, but I only had them staying together for a few years.
Sure.
They break up, but they'll remain good friends all their life.
Right, I think so. That's where I went at first, actually, was that because real life relationships when you're that young, mostly they don't work out, and I kind of felt the same way. Like they weren't gonna last as a couple, but they would always be friends because of this experience they went through. Yeah. But then when I thought of the Cloverfield connection, I kind of figured, well, they had to stay together. Stay together to have a kid, So, and I like those happy endings. So anyway,
definitely. Yeah.
Continue.
But remain good friends, and they'd always be there for each other. I could see Joe. To be honest, I don't see any of the kids being too mentally disturbed by the events they went through. Maybe Alice, because she was the abduction and she was wrapped up in everything, claustrophobia and stuff like that. But whereas with other films, you could see these like Poltergeist last time.
Right.
Kids are going to be messed up from what they went through. I think this one, they're more going to be, there'll be amazement and wonderment, maybe the odd nightmare, but nothing which is going to make it difficult for them in later life.
Right. I agree.
So
I agree. Because they're a little older too. I think they're, they can kind of cope with it and rationalize it and understand it more,
Definitely. But I can see Joe becoming a fantastic special effect and monster makeup kind of guy. Mm-hmm. His imagination has just will have been pushed so much by this encounter with the creature. Who knows what he actually saw when he was held by the creature and the psychic connection was made.
Right.
Yeah. But also, as for the town itself, I reckon it's going to become the new Roswell. States UFO hunters heading there, and the general population cashing in on the cafes, bars, merchandise, things like that. Right,
because there's always going to be those conspiracy theorists out there who are going to say like this wasn't a methane leak, this was an alien crash.
It's cover up, conspiracy.
Yeah, I like that. And they'll have a little cafe. Like an alien-themed cafe. By that point, the government won't care because it's so kitschy and so sort of pop culture-y that it's they chalk it up to the wackos.
Just swamp the market and the Weekly World News and all the things like that.
Right.
And that's people just say, it's just a joke.
Right.
And finally, I also said a little bit different from yours, but connected to another film. The alien was a scout, and he went off to report what had happened, and they returned in 1996 on Independence Day.
Oh, there you go. All right.
There you go.
See, great minds think alike. All right.
We're getting meta. So how many films? That's 3 more films it goes into.
Yeah. That's quite the widespread net of connections that all come from Super 8.
Exactly.
Who knew?
But speaking connection to Super 8 and Cloverfield, what about 10 Cloverfield Lane? What do you think that's going to be like?
It's interesting. I've had mixed. Well, first of all, I have to say that I think the trailer for it is fantastic. I think
great trailer.
It looks great, and I was when the trailer first dropped, and a lot of people online were saying, "Is this the sequel to Cloverfield?" And I was like, "Well, of course it is. It's called 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like, what else would it be?" But then as I was researching Super 8, I did read about how they have sort of talked about doing like a series of loosely related films that are all sort of under this Cloverfield banner.
Yeah.
So that, maybe it's not a direct sequel, although it seems to me that it makes sense. This monster shows up, it destroys New York, more of them come, the world has gone to crap. John Goodman and these two characters are in this,
it does look like it's happening at the same time as the first film, or like a few weeks or months after, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to see if it's going to be like a real sequel or just sort of a thematic sequel, But I do think it looks great, and I've always been a big fan of movies where there's like a small group of characters like kind of trapped in some somewhere like
there's some of my favorite films that people stuck somewhere and trying to find out what's going on, and
right.
one of them's a bad one, but it turns out to be the other one they weren't looking at, and stuff like that.
Exactly. So I do love that genre of film, and I have high hopes for it. I hope it's good.
Well, and the good thing as well with J.J. Abrams, there's always that bit of mystery with his films. He manages to keep things locked down and let things slip out. Yeah,
exactly. He's definitely a brilliant marketer for sure.
Yeah,
and actually,
definitely.
I'm not a huge fan of Cloverfield, mostly because I don't really love the found footage style of filmmaking, and that one in particular is so, I hate to sound like a, whatever shaky camera, but it's a bit, much to watch.
Get to you a bit much,
and so I'm happy that 10 Cloverfield Lane is going back to a traditional storytelling format. That makes me happy.
Yeah, it does look like it's got potential.
Yes, absolutely. All right, good.
Yeah, I think we've wrapped that one up.
Yeah. So there you go. So those are our thoughts on Super 8 and Leon or The Professional, or Leon the Professional, whichever you prefer.
Leon.
There you go. Phil clearly prefers Leon. So if you have thoughts on how you think these movies would have ended after the ending, or you have any comments on our endings, feel free to drop us a line. You can comment on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/aftertheendingpodcast. All right, Phil, what's going on in the movie world that you want to talk about today?
Well, just a couple of things. Disney have been developing a new version of Pete's Dragon, and the trailer for that dropped today.
Yes, it did.
And it stars Robert Redford and Bryce Dallas Howard. They find a kid who's been lost in the woods for the past few years, and he says he's being looked after by a dragon. And obviously the grown-ups don't believe him, but we all know it's real. But the trailer looks really nice, looks very magical. It's had a nice feel to it. So I've suddenly gone from being not that bothered about the film to going, ooh, I like the look of this.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I knew it was in production, but I hadn't really been following along and paying much attention to it. And so just the fact that Robert Redford is in it alone makes me interested. He's one of my absolute favorite actors.
He's brilliant.
And I'll watch him in just about anything. And I do very much also like Bryce Dallas Howard. So that is a good combination for me. Disney's been hitting them out of the park lately, so
they certainly have.
Hopefully this one will be good. I think it's an interesting film to remake, but I like that they're going with sort of a modern take on it, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
It's nice to have some kids' films to look forward to, because we've got Pete's Dragon, which looks good, and also Steven Spielberg's adaptation of the BFG.
Yeah,
because I'm looking forward to that one as well.
I am too, but I have to say I can't get over the name because
Because of Doom.
Because of the F. I just hear, all I think of is the big effing whatever, giant, is it? Isn't it the giant?
It's the big friendly giant.
Right. Well, all I hear is, when I hear BFG, I think of the big effing giant. And I know that's terrible because it's a kid's film, but that's what I hear. So
it's very true.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be out there. When the reviews start to drop, people are going to use, I think, some covered up F-bombs, but we'll see what happens.
I'm sure there's going to be T-shirts with that available.
Exactly.
And the other thing was, I went to see Bone Tomahawk over the weekend. That's the new one starring Kurt Russell.
Right.
And I was most enjoyable. Well, enjoyable's the wrong word.
I hear it's pretty grueling.
It's a Western, and they go off to rescue a guy's wife who's been kidnapped by troglodytes. And it's a very slow burner, but it's a great Western, but it's more like a pulp monster Western.
Right.
And when the action hits, it hits bloody hard.
Right.
I'm saying bloody hard because there's lots of blood.
Right.
But it's worth seeing. All men being macho without knowing how to deal with their situation.
Right.
And then it all goes wrong.
Excellent. Yeah, it's funny. That actually came out on video here in the U.S. a few months ago.
Of course, it's been out for a long time.
Yeah,
in the States,
it didn't get much of a theatrical release. So, it's in my pile of movies to get to, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet, unfortunately.
Definitely not one to watch with the kids.
No, I wouldn't think so. But that's good advice. No. Good advice. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And like I said, follow us. Oh, we got to do our pimping.
Yeah.
Our stone cold pimping. So, Phil, tell people about your website and your social media.
Yes, I am Phil, and I am the chief editor on liveforfilms.com. You can find us on the web, on Facebook, on Twitter, on all the other social media places you'd expect to find us, and it's all your movie news, trailers, posters, and lots of interviews and competitions.
There you go. All right.
You know it makes sense.
Yes, it's a great site. I frequent it myself regularly.
Thank you most kindly.
Of course. And I'm Mike. I'm the editor-in-chief of IWantMy2$.com, which is everything pop culture. And I'm also an author, so you can learn more about my fiction books. If you like what you hear here and you want to see it in printed form, you can check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/MikeSpringOfficial. All right, next week we're going to be back with 2 more films. We're going to discuss our very first John Hughes film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I am a huge John Hughes fan, and I think we'll be discussing a lot of them.
And me too. It's John Hughes classic, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Just very funny film.
Yep, so we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to discuss the found footage superhero type film Chronicle by director Josh Trank, who went on to helm last year's disastrous Fantastic Four reboot. So yes, so Fantastic Four may get a future episode, actually, since I'm doubting they're going to make a sequel to it. So
yes,
we'll see. Yeah. But so next week, join us please for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and also Chronicle. And again, if you have a movie you'd like to hear us talk about, drop us a line on Facebook, and we'll take it into consideration.
Also, send us your favourite film ending and worst film ending. The worse, the better.
Yes, exactly. And we'll pick some of the best suggestions and share them on the air as well. We love to have feedback from people, and we love to share people's names on the air as well. So send us some comments, and we'll see what we can get worked into the podcast. Thank you again for listening. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And we'll see you next week.
After the ending.
Huge actions. I can't talk tonight. Oh my goodness.
I know. I feel the same. Yeah.
I think so. What I had was, I think that she agreed. It's
catching, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've only spoiled 3 films.
Yeah, that's all right. Just wait till we do The Sixth Sense and The Crying Game.
Oh my God! Why? And they get Lois's, and they get Louis. Louis.
Yeah, you can call him whatever you want.
Yeah. I also saw I also can't speak.
Right. And there you go. So we'll be back next week with some more movies, and we're going to keep on keeping on. No.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Let me do that again.
And remember, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, that's good. Let's end the episode with some really cheesy platitudes. All right, let me do that last part again.
Use the force, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. All right, next week we will be back. And hang on. Okay, this is just a disaster.
It's crazy, isn't
it? It's a train wreck. You see how I tied it back to Super 8? Thank you.
Oh, and also let us know of your favourite film endings, your worst film endings, and anything else. No, that's a load of crap. Don't say anything else again. Yes. Okay. Also drop us a line to let us know your favourite film ending and the worst film ending you've ever seen. Okay.
And we'll just end it there. Yeah. I'll do like a mic drop sound effect.
Boom.
Yeah, boom, and walk away. All right, thank you again for listening. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And we'll see you next week.
At the movies.
I don't know if we could use that.
I know. After the ending.
There you go. That's it.
There we go, yeah.
Why did it take us so long to think of that?